Notre Dame held its 10th practice of fall camp as it gears up for its season opener on the road against Florida State. The media got to see the first 30 minutes of practice today, and we'll bring on our reporters to let you know what they saw. Before we dive into it, please hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe. We appreciate you guys, what we're building here at blueandgold.com, and thank you guys so much for helping us reach 10,000 subscribers. Bring in Todd Burlage and Tyler Horka, blueandgold.com writers, to break down today's practice. Now, talking to you guys before we started recording, didn't seem like there was a ton that you guys saw in the first 30 minutes of practice that Notre Dame allowed the media to see. So what did you guys get to see?
Yeah, we're getting really good at watching these guys stretch, that's for sure. They bring us in off the street. The first usually 15, 20 minutes is kind of watching everybody go through the stretching lines. And as Todd pointed out the first time last week, that was really good to kind of see who was at the front of those lines. And, you know, it turned out that the 17 captains came from that first line. So that was interesting. At this point, that's kind of social hour at these practices. We kind of just make mental notes of who's where, who's maybe not out there. It seemed like pretty much for the most part, everyone was out there today. Specifically Blake Fisher is kind of the guy that jumped out to me right off the bat in those stretching lines, fully padded up, ready to go. And by the time that we got out to the outdoor field, the offensive unit ran routes on air, 3 different drives led by 3 different quarterbacks. We know who those guys are at this point: Jack Cohn, Drew Pine, and Tyler Buckner. And Blake Fisher was working with the first team, so I think that's kind of what everybody took away from practice today, Todd.
Yeah, I think that's the top storyline is Fisher working with the ones, and I think it's going to stay that way, Tyler. I really do. So as we kind of look at the offense, everything seems to be settled to me, Michael. And the starters really haven't changed much at all now, right down to the wide receivers. You're talking about Davis, Lindsey, and Austin there. Obviously, Michael Mayer and George Takix are working both with the ones at tight end, and then Jack Cohn is obviously running the show today. Tyler can probably break down that offensive line, but indeed, I think that's what I took away is it definitely looks like Notre Dame's first team offense is set and ready to go.
Yeah, we did have an article on blueandgold.com earlier this week or over the weekend, kind of laid out the depth chart, and the offensive line is exactly the way that we saw it. Blake Fisher working at left tackle, Zeke Correll at left guard, Jarrett Patterson at center. You have Kane Madden up there with the ones at right guard, and then Josh Lugg at right tackle. And it does feel like that's kind of set in stone, barring injuries. And then even as it relates to the rest of the offense, Kevin Austin is your boundary receiver. Braden Lindsey's your field receiver, and Avery Davis, who caught a touchdown after that route on air drive today, is in the slot. So, and then we know who those first team running backs are as well. Kyron Williams is going to get the bulk of the carries. Chris Tyree's kind of right there behind him.
So that's quite the breakdown of the offense. Are you guys able to see much of the defense? Anything to take away from anything defensively, Tyler?
Todd and I were talking about it just before we got on here, and I wish that we would get to see these guys kind of line up in formations like we do with the offense. We don't get to see much of that unless we're watching a full practice, and today we only got to see half an hour, and like I said, at least half of that is just stretching. But you do get to see guys go through individual drills, and you can kind of glean some things from that. For example, the cornerbacks usually tend to work pretty closely to where we're watching behind the end zone, and it's Clarence Lewis and Cam Hart working with the ones.
Yeah.
I know we talked a lot about last time Tariq Bracy probably looking like that nickel corner. Interestingly, he was kind of working as a second-team corner today with Ramon Henderson, so that's kind of something to watch. Maybe he will line up on the outside when one of those first 2 guys need a break. Other than that, I mean, it's Kurt Hinish hitting the crap out of tackling dummies. It's you mentioned Isaiah Foskey looking like a freak.
He does look like a freak.
It's just kind of mental notes. But again, when we get to those Thursdays where we get to watch the full practice, that's really where we get to see a lot of the defense.
Yeah, they just break these guys off into one-on-one individual unit drills, so it's hard to take a lot away from the defensive side of the ball during these short sessions.
So it does seem like the most notable thing you guys saw today was that routes on air. Was there anything else notable you guys want to add in terms of personnel or any specific plays from any players, Tyler?
I think it's just very obvious, especially now that the announcement has been made that Jack Cohn is QB1. I know we've been talking throughout these videos that it just kind of seems like he has a presence about him. Today it was very businesslike. It was like, okay, Jack Cohn is going to lead the first team out there for this routes on air drive, and we're going to watch what Jack Cohn does. Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner, especially Tyler Buckner toward the end of the drive, it looked like even routes on air, he looked a little indecisive. He didn't know where to throw the ball. It's like, okay, maybe the coaches are telling me to throw it here on this play, but I see this progression and I kind of want to throw it there. It was just a little bit of indecision. So it's very clear who the number one quarterback is on this team. And obviously Drew Pine's probably the number two guy too, based on what we've seen.
Well, the one thing I noticed that was different from the previous practices we've been to is Brian Kelly spent a lot of time talking individually to Jack Cohn. We really hadn't seen him pull him aside and really do individual coaching with him. So that was something a little bit different today.
And then just a couple more notes on those second and third teams. I thought it was interesting. We talked a little bit about the running backs. You know, Kyron Williams, Chris Tyree, that's your number 1 and 2. Sebo Flemister's probably your number 3, given that he's a senior and has all that experience. And the last couple of practices, we've gotten to see Logan Diggs and Audric Estime a little bit more. And I think Logan Diggs is actually ahead of Audric Estime in that pecking order. When they did the routes on air down the field, he rotated in with Sebo Flemister on that second team, and Audric Estime just stayed in with the third team the entire time. So we've got 5 really good running backs. We wrote about that at blueandgold.com this week. That's your pecking order. That's your hierarchy with those 5.
The one thing we did get to watch today, Michael, was we got to see some kicking, some live kicking. Obviously, Jonathan Dorr was the frontliner there. Josh Bryan got some attempts as well. Michael Vincent was working as the long snapper, and Jay Bramblett as the holder. And Dorr really looked from about 35 to 45 yards. He hit 3 of his 4 field goals. Obviously, he struggled quite a bit late last season, so he's going to be an important player to watch.
So good stuff there from Todd Burrows and Tyler Horka. Let's take a look at a few more clips. Jack Cohn connecting with Avery Davis on an out route. Drew Pine connecting here with Lorenzo Styles, the impressive true freshman. Another true freshman here throwing the football. Tyler Buckner throwing out to Matt Salerno. And then Jack Cohn connecting with, how about that? There's Jaden Thomas from Atlanta Pace Academy. Our first look at that true freshman, I believe, in our videos here at blueandgold.com. Big-bodied young man, again, as just a freshman. And then Pine connecting on this little hitch route over the middle to Braden Lenzy. In just a second here, we will see a throw from Drew Pine to another true freshman receiver. Let's take a look at this offensive line here from left to right. This is the second team O-line. Michael Carmody at left tackle. Left guard is Rocco Spindler. The center, Andrew Kostovic. Right guard, John Dirksen. And right tackle is Tosh Baker. Running back there is Logan Diggs. And there you see Pine hitches for a second, then throws out to Dion Colsey, a long, lanky, true freshman receiver. And we showed this clip earlier, but wanted to bring it up once more to take a look at this offensive line from left to right. Blake Fisher, left guard Zeke Carell, center is Jarrett Patterson, right guard Kane Madden, and the right tackle here is Josh Lugg, and Cohn hands the ball off there to Chris Tyree. There wasn't much defense to be shot today, as the guys talked about. You didn't see any groupings of personnel or anything like that. It was just individual drills. So we're kind of focusing in on the offense here. No scrimmage either that the guys got to see. But on this clip, you have Tyler Buckner catching the snap. And let's go left to right on the offensive line. Caleb Johnson, true freshman at left tackle. Quinn Murphy, believe a walk-on. Center is Pat Coogan. Of course, true freshman. Right guard is Quinn Carroll. And right tackle is Joe Walton. Of course, folks know that I am the president of his fan club. And then on this clip, you'll see Mitchell Evans running downfield. Tyler Buckner delivers out to Audric Estime. And guys, that looks like a dude right there. Audric Estime is a beast. So that's going to do it for this video. Appreciate you guys sticking around and watching here to the end. If you haven't hit that thumbs up, please do. Make sure to go to blueandgold.com for all of your coverage of fall camp and Notre Dame football recruiting.